Cyril Ramaphosa's envoy, Dr. Sydney Mufamadi, has embarked on a crucial mission to the neighboring country to address the ongoing political violence there. Now, the country has been gripped by opposition protests since the announcement of the October's disputed elections. The ruling Frelimo party was declared the winner, despite objections by the Podemos party leader and some independent observers. Now, the crisis has attracted the attention of key multilateral organizations. These include the African Union, the United Nations and SADC. Research consultant at the Institute for Security Studies, Mr. Borges Nhamirre, joins us on the phone line for an analysis on the story. Borges, very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us. It would appear that the situation in Mozambique is deteriorating.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, the last week was definitely very difficult. A lot of people have been killed. A lot of economic infrastructure has been destroyed. The office of the ruling party also, including two courtrooms that have been court buildings that have been set alight. So it's a lot of unrest, reaching a situation of more than just protest, but what we see in Mozambique is already something that we can call insurrection.
Yeah, there's been some concern that I'm sure you understand that South Africa has intervened in one way or another on a diplomacy level, that perhaps the country's foreign policy could be biased if with the ANC coming to the aid of a fellow liberation movement in that country. We'll look at what happened with Zimbabwe's ZANU-PF, now with Mozambique's Frelimo. We saw what happened in Angola, Namibia, SWAPO. The minister has denied this, of course, and says South Africa is non-aligned. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, what I can see from the country is that not most of the opposition party trust South Africa, because the ruling party in South Africa is aligned to the ruling party Frelimo. While South Africa is an important country, is a neighboring country for Mozambique, it can play an important role. I think it's very important to build trust between opposition parties in Mozambique and South African government, because it is seen from Mozambique as very close to the ruling of Frelimo. So I'm not saying South Africa is not important, cannot play an important role, but it needs to build trust among the opposition leaders.
Yeah, it poses a serious challenge for South Africa in terms of security terms. It may impact negatively on not only the country, but the region as well. How do you see this panning out?
Well, just like other countries, Mozambique shares borders with 6 countries in the region, including South Africa. So one of the immediate impacts when we talk about security is that we'll see a lot of refugees from Mozambique seeking a safe place, including in South Africa. It's already happening with Malawi and with Zimbabwe, and the likelihood that the same will happen in South Africa is there. I'm not saying those people coming into South Africa are criminals, but at least undocumented people. So this poses threat to the security officers, security service. But a major problem, I think, is economic. So South Africa and Mozambique economic relationship are very strong. So when these protests go on, it means there's no, first of all, transport service between the two countries. So that is a big problem for South Africa. But what we need to understand is that whenever your neighbor's house is burning, you must look for your own.
Yeah. Do you think the presidential envoy sent by President Cyril Ramaphosa is enough? Is South Africa playing the role of big brother in a sufficient way? I mean, at this stage of negotiations, that some may say it's still very premature, but we see things are escalating very quickly.
I think it's important. I think it's important because this is a very good sign for President Cyril Ramaphosa to send an envoy to Mozambique. So this is a clear action. However, I don't know who to talk to. It seems like the envoy went to talk to President Newzroom, but he also needs to engage with the opposition leader. So this is what I was saying in the beginning. If you're sending an envoy to talk to President Newzroom, who is the president of Mozambique, but also the leader of the ruling Frelimo, the envoy also needs to organize meetings with different actors, including opposition leaders, civil society organization, religion. So I don't think it's enough. But it's an important sign, it's an important move.
Yeah. You know, there's always the thought that there could be what is often called the third force that is influencing what is happening in Mozambique, perhaps international influences, and instead of just a domestic issue that needs to be resolved within. What are your thoughts around that?
Well, living in a global world, it's very difficult that you can be isolated from international actors. But so far, there's no sound evidence that any international force is influencing the situation in Mozambique. But of course, we'll understand that during a conflict, because what we have in Mozambique is a conflict. As the conflict goes, as the conflict escalates, more actors will join. For example, if Mozambique moves to a situation of armed conflict, there will be different organizations interested in selling weapons, for example, but also those who come to help, but also seeking to get some advantage. So whenever there is a conflict, someone will look for his opportunity to influence and get some benefits. So this is something that can be expected. However, until this point, we don't have sound evidence that anyone else is influencing the conflict. What we see at this point is conflict between opposition and the government.
Yeah, it's just speculation at this point, but who would benefit from conflict within Mozambique?
Well, let's say no one benefits from conflict. Yeah, so a benefit doesn't benefit no one. We all lose. All the parties lose. However, I think that maybe I can talk about the risk. What are the risks of having conflict in Mozambique? So there's a risk that, for example, private military companies can see that as an opportunity to make business, to protect assets, to protect people, which is not good at all for a country. So this is one of the highest risks I foresee.
Yeah. Do you think Mozambique would benefit from more intervention outside of South Africa's presidential envoy that's been sent through?
Well, I think this envoy needs to engage with opposition. That is important. That's important, including Venancio Mondlane, who is hiding somewhere. No one knows where he is, but of course he can be contacted using a trusted mechanism to contact him and engage with him. And if South Africa could bring Venancio Mondlane to talk with the government in a constructive way, that could be a great contribution for South Africa.
Yeah, I suppose that's one of the tricky issues happening at the moment, with the opposition leader being outside of the country. His whereabouts are known at this moment, but he's able to command the power to be able to tell his followers, his supporters, to hold these protests that we've been seeing flaring up within the country. Again, perhaps giving credence to that notion that perhaps there are more people that are involved in this.
I don't think so. I think Venancio Mondlane first left the country because he was attacked by police. So let's not forget that. Venancio Mondlane was in Mozambique, and what happened after the election is that two people very close to him, a lawyer and electoral agent, were killed, were gunned down in Maputo. So this is where it started. Before that incident, before that murder, there was no conflict in Mozambique, near the protests. Next thing that happened is that Venancio Mondlane was giving interview to journalists in the daylight in Maputo without a protest, and then the riot police came and shot on him. He fired tear gas grenade over him. Then after that, he left Mozambique. Of course, I think he did the right thing, So once he is hidden somewhere, we can look at it different ways. We can consider him like a freedom fighter who is leading the fight from an exile. That's one perspective, but also we can consider that he is being instrument of international or foreign forces. So it depends on the point of view, how the people think about it. But what we can say at this point, independently, is that there's no sound evidence that someone or anyone else is supporting Venancio Mondlane with this struggle.
Yeah, but what would you say is the success rate of such diplomatic interventions as we're seeing happening now with South Africa and Mozambique? And I ask you this because we've seen the same envoy that's in Mozambique right now going to Zimbabwe a couple of years ago to go and investigate human rights issues there. Nothing seems to have happened in terms of redress of the victims of those human rights abuses. What can we expect in terms of positive action coming out of this interaction?
Well, that's the problem of our countries, our African countries. And let's talk about the region. Our region, SADC, is very weak because it doesn't solve the problem. So that is the key point. SADC is not able to prevent conflict and to solve conflict once it emerged. So let's recall that even before this conflict reached this escalation, there was a summit organized by SADC in Zimbabwe, Harare, and nothing was done there. It was like a coffee between brothers, and they issued a statement, very poor statement. It did not solve the problem. So the risk that South Africa and other neighboring countries can engage in resolution of conflict and fail, it's so high because they don't take serious position. The SADC leaders, including South African leaders, they tend to protect their fellow comrades. So that is the problem.
Thank you for your insights. Borges Nhamirre is an ISS researcher giving us his thoughts